The trade war between the United States and China has entered a new and volatile phase in 2025. What began as a dispute over tariffs and trade deficit has now escalated into a full-scale economic standoff, with each side imposing ever higher tariffs and sanctions. The latest round of tit-for-tat measures has not only ratified global markets but also disrupted supply chains. Prices are rising and casts a shadow over future economic growth. Both Washington and Beijing are determined to project strength, but with neither side showing signs of backing down. The world is left to wonder who will blink first. As the stakes grow higher and the outcome of this standoff could redefine the future of global trade and economic power. We're here to discuss that. Welcome to Think Tank.
Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully take office of President of the United States.
Capital open the emergency and reciprocity.
Mexico. Canada.
Greenland.
Recent reports from the Hill highlights the cautious tone now characterizing U.S.-China trade talks. Both sides are assessing the possibility of renewed negotiations, but deep mistrust and conflicting objectives persist. American officials remain wary of China's long-term ambitions, while Beijing demands a rollback of tariffs as a precondition for any progress. The article notes that while dialogue channels remain open, neither side appears ready to make the first major concession, leaving global markets on edge as uncertainty prevails over the next steps in this prolonged economic conflict. The Standard's analysis underscores the personal and political dynamics fueling the trade war. President Trump's aggressive tariff strategy is framed as both an economic and a political maneuver designed to appeal to his base and project strength. Meanwhile, China's leadership is equally determined to avoid appearing weak, responding with its own suite of retaliatory measures. The Standard warns that the cycle of escalation risks entrenching both sides, making a negotiated settlement increasingly elusive and raising the specter of lasting damage to the global economy.
The US-China war in 2025 reads like a high-stakes chess match, where neither side dares to make the first retreat. On one side, the United States, under President Trump, has ratcheted up tariffs on Chinese goods to an unprecedented 125%, targeting everything from technology to consumer products. China, refusing to be outmaneuvered, responded with its own 125% tariffs on U.S. imports and a suite of countermeasures, including export restrictions on rare earth materials, vital to American industry. This tit-for-tat escalation has sent shockwaves through global markets. Investors have rushed to safe haven assets, while companies scramble to reroute supply chains, with giants like Apple airlifting products from India to sidestep tariffs. U.S. farm exporters, meanwhile, face cancelled orders and layoffs as Chinese demand evaporates. The standoff has become more than an economic dispute. It is a test of political will, with both governments under pressure to appear unyielding at home. Despite the turmoil, neither Washington nor Beijing show signs for backing down. Trump has publicly expressed optimism about reaching a fair trade agreement, even suggesting tariffs might come down significantly if talks. China insists it will fight to the end if forced, but remains willing to engage if the U.S. corrects its policies, and has subtly signaled it is assessing the possibility of renewed talks deep mistrust lingers and no formal negotiations are on the horizon. As the world changes, the question remains, who will blink first in this economic standoff that threatens not only two superpowers, but the stability of the global economy itself?
Today we are joined by two leading voices from either sides of the Pacific. From Washington, Mr. Peter Tanis, Chairman of the Linux Investment Advisory, and from Beijing, Mr. Benny Cook, an international politics expert. And together they will help us unpack the latest developments and what they mean for the future. Good afternoon to you both, gentlemen, and welcome to Think Tank. And let me here start with Mr. Tanis. And who benefits more from de-escalating the trade war, America or China?
Well, of course, needless to say, nobody benefits from the trade war, which is why it is very important that it be solved very quickly. President Trump put a variety of tariffs on a lot of different things from a lot of different countries. But in the end, the tariff on China is by far the most important. And it's going to start having repercussions in the United States in terms of shortages and higher prices within a matter of weeks, which is why there is a great deal of urgency in getting this resolved quickly.
Mr. Cook, how can China engage in negotiations without appearing to capitulate to the U.S.?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. So as the China did before in the Trump 1.0, the tariff war at that time, the best practices for China is to so-called to buy time. That is to postpone, to elongate the discussion as long as it can, because structurally, because Chinese economy, China exports relies on the U.S. market a lot. And that for this time, Donald Trump imposes a very, very high tariff, and this suddenly stops the China goods export to the U.S. market. And also, Donald Trump also put pressures on the Southeast Asia. Those more
Tanis, do you believe the U.S. administration is prepared to sustain this level of economic confrontation, or should pursue immediate negotiations?
Okay, we have to solve this quickly. Negotiations and talks are already begun on the sub-cabinet level. There are talks going on. We're not talking about it very much, but this is the beginning of the unraveling of this situation. It is very important for both sides. The United States is China's biggest export market. We buy $500 billion worth of stuff from China every year. China does not want their factories to be idle. The United States does not want its shelves to be empty. So both sides have a great deal at stake in resolving this. And I predict that before the end of this quarter, the issue will be at least partially resolved.
Mr. Cook, how can China use ambiguity in language to enter talks while avoiding domestic backlash?
Yes. Hello. I will agree. China is sending the lower officials to the Washington D.C. to have the unofficial discussion. But the projected as in terms of the rhetoric, the Foreign Ministry of China denied, because what he denies is that there's no direct talk between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Of course, it is yes, and also one of the very important things is in China, nobody dare to reflect its leader is losing its face. That means what Xi Jinping do or what the leaders do is always right. He can only make the right decision. He cannot lose the face. So now, I would say the Chinese officials is coming up a lot of, I would say, the proposals, maybe proposal A, B, C, D, E, and then they are forming a rhetoric. They're forming the words that okay, the Xi Jinping is making this decision because it's blah 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 is saving the China economy. It is the best option, whatever, and it doesn't matter. And that is, I would say, it is what currently the Chinese officials is doing. Of course, in practically, those decisions may not be good, but at least it would save the face of the Xi Jinping, and it is the utmost important for all officials, especially the foreign affairs officials and the trade affairs officials, and it is politics, I would say.
Mr. Tanis, is the U.S. maintaining a strong negotiating position? And what does it has to do to not appear weak or desperate? And what would face-saving compromise look like for Washington?
Well, that's a really great question, Mona. And to pick up on what Benny was saying, essentially these negotiations are starting. They will end up in some sort of trade agreement. The presidents, President Xi and President Trump, will not show up until there is a deal, and then they'll show up for the cameras and the picture taking and the handshake. But the way this is likely to work out, it's face-saving on both sides. If the past is any clue, what I expect is going to happen is that at some point, President Trump's rescinding the 145% tariffs on China because trade talks are going so extraordinarily well that he's putting them aside for a period of time, and then the trade talks will continue. China will be happy because the tariffs have been lifted, whether temporarily or not, and we will start to look to a resolution of this unfortunate event.
Now, Mr. Cook, how can China balance the economic necessity of ending the trade war with the political need to appear strong to domestic and
there's no freedom of speech in China? That means China can maneuver all kinds of news about the trade war. So within China, that is within China also the state media and even the Chinese version of TikTok, they are portraying, okay, China is going to win this war. China can withstand all kinds of pressures posed by the United States and doing some pragmatic motions and pragmatic actions for dealing with the tariffs negotiations. So I would say China is making use of its the no media freedom, no freedom of speech. For these characteristics, China can always were the how to portray the image of Xi Jinping and how to portray of the country, and so that the within territory, the Chinese people could not feel much about the trade war, but of course not the factories, because those suffer a lot, but they are not allowed to say any bad things because it is politics. It would touch the red lines.
then how about the international world at large, and how would it appear for them? Because you spoke domestically, but not on the international arena, right? Please.
Okay. Okay. In the first phase, there is some TikTok clips about. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You were okay. Sorry. You were seeing some TikTok clips about some factories, some Chinese out export those companies are making clips directly to the American consumers. That's okay. We could produce a very cheap and high quality, no matter clothes, shoes, whatever, and then you can just buy those things directly to us. That is to show China can always withstand any pressures, no matter any tariffs. I would say at this time, at that time, in the meantime, China is optimistic for the American consumers and even global consumers because they relies on the very cheap and good quality Chinese goods for at least 1 or 2 or 3 decades already, and it is not easy for them to switch to other goods that are much more expensive and the quality is in question.
Mr. Tanis, what do you have on what Mr. Benny has said? And has President Trump's strategy of using high tariffs working to bring China to the table worked?
So the bottom line is that the United States position is that our trade with China has not been fair. And the President Trump wants to correct that. And I think he will succeed, at least in part, in getting a somewhat better trade deal with China. And China will be okay with that. I think our colleague from Beijing was very, very candid in terms of the two different political systems and who can withstand the pressure better. China can withstand the pressure better because they don't have to worry about things like elections. In the United States, political pressure is going to play a very important effect in all of this because there are elections and Congress gets elected every 2 years. The president has to pay attention to this, which is why I remain optimistic that the relationship with China on trade will be resolved, not in a matter of months or years, but in a matter of weeks.
But the question was, how can China balance the economic necessity of ending trade with political need to appear strong? That was my question to Mr. Cook, and he said he spoke about the domestic side and he also spoke about the international arena. This is why I asked you to tell me what do you think or what you have on that. And
go ahead, Ben.
Yes, and he spoke about the U.S. Being satisfied of what China produce. So what do you have on that?
Who are we asking?
Of course, you, Mr. Tanis, again. I'm still...
Yeah, he's absolutely right. First of all, China makes items of high quality and also a bunch of stuff like rare earths that we need and want. All of this pointing to trade having to be resolved quickly, and it will. The other reason for doing this is that while this stalemate continues, China is forging relationships, new relationships with neighbors in Asia, with South America, with the EU, and these relationships, once in place, may not unravel very easily. Another reason why this trade issue with China has to be resolved quickly. China will not come out looking badly from this. They will come out having achieved what they want to achieve. The United States will as well, with a better trade deal.
Wait, Mr. Cook, what kind of economic concessions, if any, is China prepared to offer without undermining the broader strategic interests?
I guess China may open some markets or lift some non-tariff restrictions those markets or those non-tariff restrictions may not be sensitive and may not be those markets or those policies may not be I would say may not favor the U.S. or the Western companies, for example, like the liquor or Chinese style liquor, for example, and I would say China would make some concessions, but those concessions may not be really practical, but at least it would show its actions because what the China knows the U.S. United States want is the so-called the free market or the freedom of speech, and those markets or those policies are the very out to do so. So I would say, as I have said in the beginning, that is China is always buying the just always delaying this or as long as it can, so that trying to dilute the issue and to try to persuade the American consumers or the global consumers and the third parties that the tariff war is no good for the global economy and the U.S. start the tariff and please point the finger to the United States rather than China.
Well, Mr. Tannis, do you think a third-party mediator would help the U.S. reach a better trade agreement with China?
I doubt it. I think the Chinese and the Americans are perfectly capable of doing this on their own. I don't think they need any outside help in doing it. I think you just got an explanation from our friend in China of the concessions that will be necessary and that China's willing to make. Where I disagree is I don't think China will want to delay this indefinitely. I think both sides are eager to come to a resolution quickly.
Now, Mr. Cook, what do you think, or how would Beijing define a victory in the trade war that can be publicly claimed without making significant compromises from the Chinese point of view?
Okay, as I have said, just the last question, that is, okay, China is lifting some non-tariff restrictions or open some markets, and China would portray it that is, okay, we are sending friendly message to the United States, and China is willing to talk and cooperate with the United States to settle all the disputes with showing the hands the Washington, rather than Donald Trump is behaving very badly, always having the strict policies against the Beijing. First, it is the first, and the second, and the state media was said, okay, Xi Jinping is making the order to ordering the officials to work hard on improving economy and whatever it is what the state media has been good at for many years. So I would say for the rhetoric, China is very good at making the rhetorics and declaring any victory, but if you look at the inside, and I would doubt, because it is not really easy for China to make really real concessions, because it would really hurt the red line, and it would really not just the red line, and it would really hurt the so-called state interests, because those interests are related to the state-owned enterprises, and those are related to the state control of the capital and also the resources, and it would hurt the legitimacy of the Communist Party.
Right. That's all for now, because unfortunately our time is out. We thank you both Mr. Peter Tanis, Chairman of Linux Investment Advisory, and Mr. Benny Cook, an international politics expert, for your insights and for joining us at this very critical juncture. And as this episode draws to a close, the trade war between the United States and China shows no sign of abating, with both sides locked in a context of economic willpower. The world watches anxiously, aware that the outcome will shape the future of the global commerce, whether through negotiations, third-party mediator, or further escalation. The next moves by Washington and Beijing will have far-reaching consequences. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up on Qnews.